Welcome to the Fabric of a Small Town exhibition here at the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum. Joining me now, Michael Lancaster, Executive Director and Curator here at the museum. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. Can you give me a little bit of background behind the exhibition?
Well, there are three main elements to this exhibition. One is that we developed this exhibition about 2 years ago, started the process of developing it, and the idea was to interpret what it was like in an industrial textile woolen mill, what the processing was like, and also what the mill workers' lives were like, as well as to give you kind of an insight to the history of Almonte as one of the largest textile woolen mill towns in Canada at the time.
Sorry to interrupt you. I know we'll talk about it a little bit more later in the show, but what better place to display that than a National Historic Site, right?
Yes. That National Historic Site, that was the largest mill in the late 1800s in Canada for woolen production.
So what are we looking at the moment?
Right now, that actually is a serger. It's for piecing together carpets.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. And it's a very large industrial size one that basically you would seam two carpets together to make a larger piece for a room or in it for whatever setting you're putting the carpet into.
And now when I had initially asked you to point out some of your favorite pieces, you moved towards this display here. Why is that?
Well, I really enjoy this blanket because it's a great example of material that was actually a representation of material that was made actually at the Rossman Woolen Company, which is a part of the building we're standing in now. Okay. The material, often remnants, community members would get remnants and then make it into something else for use, and this was made then into a quilt at the time, and we're lucky to have had that artifact come back to us to preserve and portray that history.
Do you know how it came to be here?
It just, someone had it in their family collection and realized it came, they thought it was just a wonderful textile and brought it to us, and then we researched it in our files of textiles that were made here, of textiles we have in file, and we realized that those are materials that match. Yeah.
Okay, and then as we continue down, hello ladies, we've got some more large pieces of machinery. What were they used for?
Well, there's a real mix. What we have is a representation showing the whole processing in a woolen mill, and you see what we're currently looking at here is an industrial loom. So this shows kind of the size and scale of machinery in a woolen mill. This one here actually is not majority of these machines are not original from this mill. This one actually came to us from the Correctional Institute in Kingston.
Oh,
so
they used to put them to work?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So now this is a long-standing exhibition?
Yes.
You had mentioned, so it's not going anywhere.
No.
But earlier in the morning, if you happen to miss our conversation with Karen Jordan, the artist behind the Hairlines exhibit, can we give people a brief overview of what that's all about?
Well, fantastic combination. It's basically kind of started off with the idea of history, and hair was always often used, especially in Victorian times and earlier, for memorializing people who have passed on. So people often used hair in a wreath or some form. So what we did is kind of a contemporary spin on that, and Karen's been working in a wonderful way of working with her own hair and collecting it and presenting it with these bound sculptures, which is fantastic. And then Norman fell in love with that, and he did the beautiful drawings. So combining those two, I think, was just a beautiful idea to kind of tell a contemporary story on what the history of the Victorian era.
Very interesting. So when you come to the museum, you can not only look at the Fabric of a Small Town exhibition upstairs, but the brand new Hairlines exhibit that will only be here until January 12th as well. If you head to the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum website, you can look at all of the information, but don't go anywhere. Later in the morning, we're going to talk about the history behind the building.